Hello and welcome to Wolfman Gaming. This is my Uncharted 4 Crushing Difficulty walkthrough, and this is chapter 10, also known as the 12 Towers, and this video is part 2 of that chapter. And when we left off in the previous episode, we had just arrived to this giant tower where we need to get down a drawbridge. And to get to that drawbridge, we're gonna have to first climb up this one and get over, you guessed it, a crate. A big crate on wheels, so we can get up to the crank to lower the bridge. And of course, we are not gonna do this undisturbed. Shoreline will very soon join the party, and this is actually the first fight in the game where, when I played this game on Crushing the first time, this is the fight where I came up with my so-called cliffhanger strategy. Because I played on Crushing, didn't have too much problems. The tower fight in part 1 of this chapter caused me a lot of strife before I came up with the strategy I showed you. But when I got to this fight, because this is also one of those big open areas, it's hard to find a place where you can put your back against the wall and just be safe and mow down all the shoreline soldiers that will join us. But that's when I found out about that ledge. And it was purely by chance that I that I tried it. Because I think I was trying to roll out of the path of a grenade and ended up, you know, if you have played these games, you know the platforming is something, or the covers are sometimes very sticky, to put it mildly. And then I realized, hanging from the ledge that I'm going for right now, I realized that no one can hit you when you're hanging there. Which makes this fight so much easier, and you will see, because I did this entire fight in one take. And a lot of the fights in this game, when I was recording my walkthrough, some of them I had to redo. It took me a few tries. For some of them I had forgotten my strategies, and there is also always that little RNG factor. Sometimes the game can screw you over. But this strategy is so good and so consistent, so it worked first time, no problems at all. There are just a few things you're gonna have to remember before you do this. Be careful with your bullets, because sometimes enemies will come up close to the ledge and you can pull them off, or you can shoot them at close range. So if you run out of bullets, you can just go up, pick up a new clip or a new gun and hang from this ledge again. But try to don't do it like I do. Don't use blind fire too much. And stay on this side, because if you get unlucky and climb around that corner, you saw me going around the corner immediately going back, because sometimes an enemy will position himself at the far end of this tower and he can shoot you from that side. On this side you're completely safe. No one will be able to hit you, at least not in this first wave, and that is the second point I'm gonna get to. Because there is only one enemy you may need to fear in this fight, and he arrives in that truck with the second wave of enemies. Because in that wave there is one guy holding a rocket launcher. No, he is not. He has a grenade launcher, was what I was gonna say. Not a rocket launcher, he has a China Lake. And the only reason he poses a problem, you will see it in this, because since we're hanging from a ledge, if you get too close to an explosion, Nate will lose his grip. And there you also see a guy on the far side of the tower trying to shoot me. But if a grenade blast goes off too close to you, you will lose grip of the ledge and you will fall to your death. And that's what's so great about this ledge, is that it's quite long, so you can always move to the sides. You see, they throw a grenade, just jump or skip or whatever you call it once, and it gets me out of the blast radius. And here we have the guy with the China Lake. You saw that? He went completely worms on me. He bounced it off the ground and it blew up just behind me. And I got really lucky there. So when he shows up, he should be your top priority. I have 4 grenades right now. And I have no idea why I haven't used them yet. I think I wanted to wait to use them until I got a group of enemies together. Yeah, like right now I know there are 2 guys close to each other. Unlucky for me, they decided to move apart, but it could have worked well. At least took out one of them. But also feel free to use grenades, because when this fight is over, when all is said and done, all the shoreliners are dead, this entire battlefield will be completely littered with ammunition. There will be grenades, there will be ammos for your AK, there is also a Baroque 44 and a China Lake, and we all love those. And from this fight, I will actually bring, I think I brought the Rafika and also an AK. And that may have been a mistake on my behalf. Because after this fight, there is one more fight in this chapter. And that fight is, in all honesty, very hard. I think it's very hard. And it has a few heavies in it. When the fight starts, 2 heavies are gonna spawn in immediately. So maybe it would be a better strategy to bring the China Lake and the Baroque going into that fight. I will not be doing it. I managed to get through it either way. And that is also something I'm gonna tell you. Make sure to restock on grenades before you leave this fight. That is very important. They will serve you so well in the last fight of the chapter. Believe me, because there are a lot of enemies. It's quite a cramped area. And it's also one of those areas where it's hard to find a place to just put your back into a corner and keep your flanks safe and kill them. And now, as sad as it is to admit, you're gonna see some terrible shooting and some terrible resource waste on my behalf. Because I managed to fire 2 Baroque bullets straight into a picket fence. And that is not how you use a power weapon in these games. If you have watched my walkthroughs, I often talk about the fact that power weapons are a great resource. You should always use them as best you can. And when you use a power weapon, make sure that your bullets hit. They are too far valuable resource to waste them like I do right now. And as I said, I decided to use the Baroque and the China Lake in this fight to take out, I think it's 2 enemies left or something. Which is a bit wasteful. But if you choose to do it the same way I do, you will still be able to beat the next fight. It will be harder. Probably. I have never tried going into that fight with the China Lake and the Baroque, but since they have such an amazing stopping power, I assume they will make the fight easier. And I think that was the last of the enemies. Feel free to pick up a journal entry while you're standing on that big painting in the floor. Yes, all the enemies are dead. And I barely got a scratch. So the only threat in this fight, if you go for the same strategy as I did, is the guy with the grenade launcher. Not a rocket launcher, a grenade launcher. So whenever he shows up, make him your top priority. Put a grenade next to him. If that doesn't kill him, follow it up with a bullet or 2 and he will go down and you will have no problems at all. And now you're gonna see me running around this battlefield for a little bit and trying to pick up as much ammo as possible, because I know what's coming up. And I'm not a big fan of the fight coming up, because I think it's extremely hard. And to some extent it's hard for the wrong reasons. Because it took me a few tries to beat that fight. And a lot of times I died was because I like to start that fight by throwing in 2 grenades and try to spawn kill the first 2 heavies that join. And if you watched this walkthrough, you saw in chapter 8 that Sam got in my way when I tried to throw a grenade when I was on that little bridge ruin. I think it's in part 1 of that chapter. And that is also something that happened to me quite a few times when I was recording this chapter. Because as you could see in this fight, Sam and Sully were actually quite useful. They grabbed a few enemies so I could take them off quickly with 1 shot each and made them very simple. But that is something that happens from time to time, that they can be complete assholes. In all honesty. And as I said, I think I died maybe 4 or 5 times. Just because I was trying to throw a grenade and Sully or Sam was sitting behind the same cover I was. So the grenade basically bounced off the back of his head, landed next to me and killed me. And if the grenade didn't kill me, one of the 3 gazillion enemies showing up to that fight did. So what I did on my successful run, and which you will see in this video, is that I don't duck behind cover before I start lobbing in. I usually start with 2 grenades. Because with heavies in these games, the first grenade will strip them of their armor and the second grenade will kill them. That is a consistent if they get close within the blast radius. And we all know the blast radius on grenades in these games aren't super big. They're quite fair and I like it. But anyway, the first grenade will strip them and the second grenade will kill them. And don't duck behind cover before you have thrown those grenades. It will probably save you a lot of grief if you don't do that. Because you don't want to get frustrated with your AI companions. They are there to help you, even though a lot of times they just get in your way. And as I mentioned earlier, I think it's quite weird that they are so clumsy in this game. Because in the first 3 games, I never had that problem. That, of course, sometimes they would get in your line of fire or something like that, but I have never experienced the problem where an AI companion gets in the way when you try to do a grenade toss, until I start playing this game. And here we have what I think is a little homage to Uncharted 2. Or at least it's, in my opinion, it's very reminiscent of it. And this sequence is entirely scripted. You are supposed to go off this cliff. I actually tried on one of my playthroughs to get the wire around the rock on the other side, just to bypass that event. I wanted to see if it was possible, and I didn't manage to do it. So it is there just to stress you, and I gotta say it's bloody effective. Because I don't think I'm the only player. Can I get a show of hands, or at least an acknowledgement in the comments? Which ones of you assholes tightened the first time you got to that sequence? I can admit that mine did. And it's a really cool sequence. It's one of those classic action movie style, and shows Sully, by the way, because through this entire chapter he is constantly whining about how expensive the Jeep was to rent, because they wanted to have a winch in the front of it. And well, I think both the brothers Drake and Sully can agree that it was money well spent. Because they would have been so far up Shit Creek without the paddle. Some of these Like, you come up with some creative expressions at times when I sit here comment or narrating these episodes. And this is also a bit interesting. This brick wall that we have to blow open. Because the path we are following in this game is the path that every pirate who wanted to join Avery and Thomas 2 in Libertalia, they had to do all these puzzles to get there. To show that they are worthy to live in Libertalia. But I realized that pirates of those days, they must have been fucking ninjas. To be able to get through these, because a lot of them are dilapidated by the fact that it's been probably around 200 or 300 years. I don't know when Henry Avery and his entourage of other pirates were supposed to live, can't remember. But they had to be absolute ninjas to beat some of these puzzles. Reminds me a little bit of... I talked about that in my Uncharted 2 walkthrough, where you got into that inner sanctuary where you had to climb the gigantic dagger to unlock the next part of the puzzle. Who was supposed to beat that? Soren? Either way, I'm not gonna dwell on that right now, because now we are coming into the fight. So what I do, since Sully and Sam camp behind those first two covers, I said I threw them out in the open, which was a mistake on my behalf. I remember it's wrong. I'm sorry. So I run up to that pillar that is a bit further into the room, so I can get a clear shot at those two heavies. And my strategy for this fight is I try to stay here on the left, in this corner, because also try to watch every angle at all times. Which is a really hard thing to do. This fight is a bit RNG based. I bet there are people who have completely reduced it to mechanics and know every spawn. I sadly don't, in all honesty. But this is strategy I found out that worked best for me. To stay here on the left, because you are quite well covered. The heavies aren't very quick, thank fuck for that. So when they try to approach you, you can see them a mile off. And use the shotguns. Shotguns are really great. And most enemies will try to come in either from your left side or from the front. And the good thing about that corner is that you're covered from most sides, and you can hopefully swing your camera around and kill them before they get a chance to take you out. And here we have another Worms wannabe. This is the last enemy of the fight, the last heavy, and he has a China Lake. So I was being quite nervous because this is a really short fight. And what do you give me for that? After I completed this chapter, I immediately paused this game and checked. So that is something I've mentioned numerous times before. That I was a bit uncertain if the game had lowered the difficulty at times. And it hadn't. So I'm gonna say I have no idea in hell how I survived that grenade. That should not happen on crushing. That was, I'm gonna admit it, that was just pure dumb luck. Nate took a grenade straight to the chest like a beast and survived. And I checked, it is on crushing. I just got extremely lucky with programming. And I remember first time I played this and the first time I beat this. That last guy with the grenade launcher, he came down behind me because I was in the inner part of this room when he showed up. And I wasn't quite sure where he was, so I swung around the camera and I realized he was standing like 2 feet behind me. And I went into complete panic mode, and for some reason it didn't fire. I don't know if they are programmed not to fire when you're standing right next to them, which would be the logical way, because they are mercenaries. They are not they are not suicide attackers. They plan to live to fight another day as well and get paid. So I think that if you're really hugging one of those heavies, he will not fire a grenade launcher. And this is me running around because I wasn't quite sure where I was supposed to go. What you're supposed to do is go over to Sam and Sully to end this chapter. And I thought that you were supposed to head up. As I said, I hadn't played this game in a real long time when I started recording this, so I was a bit hazy on some things. But we go up to Sam, and that concludes chapter 10. So I want to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in my next video. So until next time, this is the Wolfman signing off.